All right, guys, welcome back to the shack. I've been out of pocket for a little while, guys. It's been really busy. I've had a couple big jobs going, and it's one of those times where I have had to just grind every afternoon after work to try to keep jobs caught up and keep things from backing up. Well, in the process, I've had a couple of new machines come in that I've been evaluating and trying to get around to getting those done. So that's what we're going to do tonight. Tonight, I want to introduce you to a machine that I had never heard of. I had searched the internet. I have looked everywhere. I have found a few recent things about this machine, but there's nothing out there that I can find that would kind of help you guys if you're interested in this machine or if you're thinking about purchasing or whatever the case may be. And as always, guys, I enjoy trying out new products. I enjoy seeing what innovations and what changes or what things, creators and developers of these lasers decide is a good thing to go with and what's not. So tonight we're going to be going through a brand new machine. It's the name of it here, and I'm going to show you the book, is the Wizmaker L1. Now, on the manual, it says LE001, but all of the information that I've gotten, the little bit of stuff that I found on the internet, they refer to it as the LE1. So we're going to follow suit. But the name of the company is Wizmaker. It kind of caught me off guard, never heard of them. So now that I've got the machine, I've had a few days to spend with it, they've actually surprised me. So we're going to go over here and kind of walk around the machine and show you some things about it, and then we'll go through some testing. And I'm just going to make a quick video just to introduce you to the machine, and hopefully in the future we can do some projects with it and get some things going to where you guys can see a little more about what the machine's capable of. So if that's something you're interested in, stick around and I'll be right back. All right, guys, so I'm going to start out by saying before you look at my machine and we go over all this, yes, I have taken the safety shield off of the machine. It did come equipped with this safety shield that attaches here with 2 screws, but personal preference, I prefer to get that thing out of my way. I wear my glasses. Typically, I would have a machine in the enclosure. Doing my testing, I typically don't, but it's just me in here, and I take them off because they get in my way. With the traditional mode of focusing this machine, you would have to have the cover on there. So if you do take it off, there will be some user input needed, but stick around toward the end of the video and we'll go over what I did to overcome an issue that I created by taking the cover off. So first things first, guys, this machine is a 24 watt diode laser, very similar to most of the other lasers in my shop, and it does have a capability of using an offline controller, which I haven't tried, but there is the port for it. I haven't tested it to see if it'll work. I do have an Atom Stack and an Acer controller, so that might be in a later video. I may try to see if they're compatible with the machine and if it'll work and go from there. It does have the TF card slot, which if it is compatible with the controller, that would be kind of handy for those of you that like using the card transfer method of engraving. So the machine is 24 watt output. The module is attached to the front using the dovetail design that is typical with a lot of the lasers on the market today. The machine does come with an air assist cone. The cone is held on by 2 additional screws here, and from what I've seen so far, guys, this thing works. It works really well. Gets plenty of airflow. This machine did come with a factory air assist pump. Now I'm gonna have a hard time getting this on there sitting over here like this, but it did come with a factory air assist pump, and this is it. It's more of the barrel type design, relatively quiet, but it does maintain a constant flow of air. The vibration on it is minimal, and so far I've had pretty good results with it. As you know, and I know a lot of you guys use shop air, so I've also done some testing with shop air running about 10 psi, and we'll go over those results later in the video when I get to the actual performance of the machine. The frame consists of the C-channel type design, similar to other popular machines. It does have the belts. There is a synchronizer or timing rod here in the front that goes in through here. The assembly of the machine, as far as lasers goes, was more on the simple end of assembly, guys. The thing came with maybe, I think there was 2 to 3 bags of screws. The majority of the screws were of the first step in the design, which is to put the main frame together. Then you've got a total of 4 screws that holds the gantry on, and there were a few other ones that you had to adjust or move around as far as the grub screws for the timing rod and that type of thing. Assembly was a breeze, so if you're one of those guys that's not really thrilled about an in-depth assembly that's kind of complicated, this one's very simple. The pictures in the book, although, you know, for some of us with aging eyes, could have stood to have been a little bit bigger, it was enough that with a little bit of help in looking at the pictures through some spectacles, I was able to determine which way everything went with relative ease. So the assembly, I'm gonna have to give them really good marks on that. Post-assembly, once I got it put together, there was a little bit of over tightness of the rollers on the gantry. And guys, I think they do this on purpose to keep the gantry from moving either in the factory or in transit. Because most every machine I get, when you get it and you put it together, the gantry tends to be a little tight. And so you have to kind of adjust the eccentric nut to get it to move a little easier. But once I adjusted that just a little bit, the gantry moved smooth. I've heard some guys say before on other machines that, you know, they tightened it up too tight and you had a flat spot on the gantry or whatever the case may be. And guys, if you ever encounter that, I will tell you that if you get one and it was too tight, and when you roll these wheels and you feel kind of like a clunk, 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 you can actually take and kind of warm that thing up a little bit with a hairdryer, heat gun, or whatever, and speed up the process of that little flat spot coming off of there. This one had just a touch of that the first day that I assembled it, but I didn't do anything to it. I adjusted the wheels, got them to the proper setting, came back in the shop the next night, and everything's smooth as glass. Everything worked itself out. Rubber is one of those materials that's on these wheels, and it can compress. So if you ever have that issue, just be patient, you know, adjust your gantry and give it a little while. Or if you're just impatient, you can kind of warm up the wheels a little bit, and that'll help them kind of return to their original condition. But don't go too crazy. Don't go too hot. That would be bad. Cable management on the machine, guys, is very simple. It doesn't come with drag chains or anything, but it does have limit switches. Therefore, you've got a limit switch here, and you've also got another one right here near the front of the machine. One cable that connects everything, and then, of course, the air line. It comes with several zip ties and some little plastic clips that are adhesive that you can connect to the gantry. Those work really well. And when you plug everything up, if you're mindful of the pressure that's going to be applied to it as it moves, you can just kind of train it to where as the gantry moves, the cables kind of go up in the air or move in a manner to where they're going to stay out of your way. One of the things that aggravates me with some of the other machines is the cables that come under here tend to grab my material and move them. I've actually been having to run multiple machines this week, and one of my machines has ruined a couple of pieces of plywood because it pulls the material when you're using it. So this is a good thing. The fact that the cabling comes up here and stays out of the way and doesn't impede into the workspace, to me, is a good thing. The cable management works well with the machine. So far, it's ran smooth. This is, for those of you that want to know, this one does have the 3-wheel design to where it has 2 rollers in the bottom and then 1 up top to maintain stability on the gantry as it moves. It also, instead of the ones that use the extrusions where they kind of pinch the extrusion and run in that groove, this one has a groove in the bottom and a groove in the top, and that's where the rollers ride in those, which gives you a little wider area from the grip, and in my opinion is a more stable design than the ones that actually pinch around extrusions. You could argue that, but that's my opinion. The module, like I said, fairly simplistic. It does have a fan shroud. There are screws in the fan shroud, but I have not taken it off. I'm assuming that would be to make it a little easier to clean, or if you did need to disassemble it. all in all, guys, 3 days of testing, putting it together. I have nothing bad to say about the machine. As far as longevity, it's been 3 days, okay? But so far, so good. It is performing well and is actually at the top of its game when it comes to cutting. So we're gonna go over those results now. All right, guys, so like I said, when I first got the machine and I got it put together, one of the first things that I like to do, because most of the times as I'm putting the machines together, I'll go around them and I'll double check everything and just make sure that the belt's not insanely loose, insanely tight. Make sure any of the eccentric nuts don't need a little bit of adjustment. And I'll make those adjustments right after I put it together before I even power the machine up. I will say I did have to adjust the belts. All 3 belts needed some adjustment. The way that this machine's put together, that's no surprise. The belts have to be tensioned and adjusted properly. So I just kind of went around it and just using my hand, tensioned them, got them to where I thought they needed to be, snugged everything down, and then went back and did a test burn. So before I did any major adjustments, I went ahead and run my test, which is the circle and square that I usually do, to see what kind of deviations I got and if any further adjustments were needed. So here's the results of that first test. All right, and as you can see, I had a little bit more. You're gonna have some variation, guys. The big thing you look for here, you don't want any lines touching, crossing over, or anything egg-shaped or misshapen. There's gonna be, either in the material or in every machine I've ever tested, there's gonna be some slight deviations, very slight. Especially with a brand new machine, sometimes the belts haven't gotten as loose as they need to be. Maybe there's some lubrication issues. So I don't beat the machines up really bad on this. But I did decide that I wanted to go back and do a little more fine tuning because I had a little more variations in places than what I wanted. So I went back, took my time, went around the machine and did some more adjustments. After those adjustments, these are the results I got. There's no significant difference, guys, but the whole moral of the story here is it was pretty consistent before or after the adjustments. Once the machine gets broken in good, I will go back after a week or so of use and kind of go over everything, tension it up, make sure there's not any loose screws that are coming loose or anything like that. And if there are, I may apply some temporary Loctite where needed to ensure that in the future I won't have any adjustment issues. So that's something I recommend you do, guys. And I even recommend after you've had the machine for a while, just run this little test periodically. All it takes is make a square, make a circle, and it'll tell you a lot. It helps me diagnose these machines and makes things a lot easier because you will be able to see if you have some tensioning issues on either the rollers or the belts. So once I made sure everything was working the way it was, I wasn't going to be jumping any belts, wasn't going to be having any issues with cutting, I decided to go ahead and do my cut test. I know a lot of you guys, cutting is very important. This is a 20 watt, which I believe is actually a 24 watt machine. And so cutting should be one of those things that it's pretty good at. And so I got some of my 4.5 millimeter Luan. I threw on my 20 watt cut test that I use for my 20 watt machines and went to work. All right. For you guys that are like me that like to use shop air, I went ahead and included a cut test using both the provided air assist module and pump, as well as I connected the machine to my shop air which is regulated about 10 psi at the regulator. Now there's some variations between the hose out to the nozzle, but it's 10 psi at the regulator, guys. So this is the results that I got. And the results were very good and very surprising to me. The machine cuts remarkably well. As you can see, with the factory air, I didn't get quite as many clean falls at 8 millimeters per second up here. So it done a good job, and this could also be wood variations, guys. This is wood, it's a natural substance. Some of these squares may have been harder than others, but I got a little better cut performance, and even the text looks a little better with the 10 psi of shop air. So, but all in all, whether you're running the provided pump or the shop air, this thing's going to top out using the standard focus. and this is the standard focus that they provide the little piece of acrylic for. It's going to top out somewhere around 8 millimeters a second. So not a bad cutting machine. Typically I run 7 millimeters a second on 20-watt machines, regardless of which one it is. So 7 millimeters a second, as long as it can hit that benchmark consistently, I'm very happy with the 24-watt machine, and this one done it really well. The back side, you can see there was some, it was still penetrating even at the higher speeds, but it's kind of, you know, hit and miss. So keep into consideration that this wood, like I said, is not, even though the grain runs this way, so pretty much that gives me a good way of trying to make sure I get as close as I can, but there still could be some glue variations and stuff on the bottom. But shop air, 10 PSI, or factory air, either way, this machine is very capable of cutting the 4.5 millimeter L1. So after that, guys, that's when I decided that I wanted to take the shroud off. And in doing so, I messed up the way that you're supposed to focus the machine. Because the way that the machine is focused, you have the shroud attached to the module, place this underneath it between your material and the module, pull it out, and it's focused. So to defeat that and to come up with an alternative way of focusing it, I measured the thickness of these two parts, and I created myself an acrylic piece which would represent that distance to here, but would also have a -2 focus here on this little edge. So depending on how deep I insert this below the module, I'm either going to be at factory focus or 2 millimeters below that. And the reason I do that, guys, is for if I'm cutting something that is thicker than I probably should be, I can always drop this guy down, sacrifice a little clearance, but get a little more penetration through some of the thicker materials. So I had to have this once I took the cover off. All right. So then, just to confirm my focus and just to see what I could do with the -2 focus and make sure that that was a good thing and not something that was going to hurt my cutting ability, I decided to run one more speed test doing it this way. And so this is the results of that speed test. And as you can see here, guys, this is shop air. All right. This is the stock air. Both of these are done with the -2 drop focus that I created with my little tool. As you can see, I was getting successful drops well into 8 millimeters per second and almost all the way down through 10 millimeters a second with the stock air compressor. And with shop air, it didn't perform quite as well with the drop focus. Now, you will notice there's a knot here, so I think the wood grain may have played a role here because I got some really good penetration, but the tops did not cut all the way through. So I'm gonna scratch that up too. That's basically going to be a tie, but I think the wood grain variations got into it. So still at this position with the -2, I am well within the 8 millimeters per second cut range, and I've even got a little bit to spare. So effectively cutting at 8 millimeters a second with the -2 focal adjustment. And guys, that's really impressive to me. A lot of the machines, you know, you can mess with the focus and get them to do better at cutting. Now, like I said, if you drop the focus like this, you are sacrificing clearance. So if you're cutting some plywood that's not exactly flat, or you've got some material that could pop up and hit the module, it's probably not a good idea to sacrifice that 2 millimeters. But if the material's flat enough and you feel confident, the burn's small enough that you're not going to be getting it out of focus or hitting anything, you know, dropping the focus is an effective way of being able to get away with a little more speed and cut and still get good, clean results. So after I did that, guys, I was fired up about the machine. Okay, it's doing a good job cutting. So I decided now for the engrave test. This is when I hit a little bit of a roadblock. It wasn't a big roadblock, but it was a small roadblock. And what I determined, because I've tested enough of these machines, I know now to check before I try to do the engrave test. The machine, the way I received it, and like I said, this is a pre-release, so things could be different when you get yours. But when I received it, the machine was limited to 6,000 millimeters per minute, which, if you look at that, is about 100 millimeters per second. So I went in and changed it to 18,000 millimeters per minute on the max speed for both the X and the Y axis. And in doing so, it allows the machine to move at a much faster pace than what it would have with that 6,000 cap on the X and Y. And I learned this with some other machines because I would do a power scale test, and after about 100 millimeters per second, it would just flatten out and the results were the same. So before I wasted an hour of my time doing my engrave test, I decided to go in, see what the settings are, make adjustments if needed, and then run the test. So if you get one of these machines, you may want to look into that and check before you start trying to do your grid tests. But this is the results that I ended up with, which were really, really nice. And as you can see right there, guys, the engrave speed of this guy, all the way up to 300 millimeters per second. If you go over here to 100% output, I'm getting a really nice brown burn at 300. Now, 50, if you're wanting to really etch into something and maybe pour some epoxy in there or something, I wouldn't go 50 or lower unless that is your intentions, because this thing is actually really hot. You can see right here the interval is 0.2 millimeters, and this is only a single pass. But I did adjust the max speed, and I made a note so that I wouldn't forget when I did this video. I did adjust the max speed from 100 millimeters per second to 300 millimeters per second before I did this test. In my opinion, guys, there is absolutely no reason to run a diode laser over 300 millimeters per second. You start getting into a lot, especially with the 20 watts and the size and mass of the module. I think you start getting into some gray areas is where it's going to start causing some damage to the machine mechanically. So 300 that's where I'm going. You know, I could be wrong. Some of you guys may want to go faster, but 300 is what I set my max speeds to. And like I said, I'm getting really good results. I got a nice gradient pattern there, good contrast. If you were doing a multi-layered burn and you wanted different colors, different burns, this would give you enough of a spread that you could do so. You could even go with your test grid and go less than 50% power to get even more of a palette to work with. So that's all of the testing specific stuff that I got to go over with you for now. So let's just talk about my overall thoughts. All right, guys, so you know I've got multiple lasers, and this thing does look remarkably like several of them. And so far, it performs well. In my opinion, this guy's a keeper. It's a good, solid 24-watt machine, sturdy frame. So far, I haven't had any software issues. The controller works well with light burn. It doesn't have a whole lot of bells and whistles. So if you're looking for all the bells and whistles of, you know, some of the other machines, it's not for you. But it has all the tools you need to be able to consistently and accurately engrave and cut per my testing. Like I said, this is the machine that they sent me. Not all machines are going to be the same, and the post-release model could have some slight differences from this one. But so far, guys, the Wizmaker L1 is a keeper here at the Clack Shack and does a really good job. I did kind of peruse through some of the literature that they sent me with the machine when they sent it out, and it does appear that there will be some accessories coming with it. More specifically, for those like myself that are interested, they will be making an extension kit according to their website. It should be here soon. So that's going to be it for the Wizmaker LE1, guys. So far, assembly, simple but effective. Product, solid. It's a stable machine. Does a good job. Software interaction was good. Setup was easy. Lightburn found the machine. I was able to just find my laser, click the buttons, click it through, set up everything as according to the manual. It worked first try. The limitations on the controller, if you're planning on going over 100 millimeters a second, you'll want to adjust that. And if you're like me and you do take the lens off of it, the protective lens, you will need to come up with a different way of focusing the machine because it does not have the kickstand. But using a simple measurement and a piece of scrap material, that's easy enough to overcome. But all together, guys, it's a good deal. From what I can see, it works great. And I'm going to drop some links that they provided me in the description below. If you're interested in looking at the machine, you can click on those. It'll take you to the website. I do not have an ETA for the extension kit yet, but like I said, it looks like a solid machine from what I can tell in the 3 to 4 days of messing with it that I've had. So that's it, guys. Until next time, be safe and have a good day.